Okay, in this video we're going to be completing the square. The goal for completing the square is to get it to be some trinomial so that when it factors, so this example here, we would have 16 up top, 8 on the bottom. So 4 times 4 would give me 16, and 4 plus 4 would give me 8. So we're trying to get it to factor to be the same numbers here, and so I can write it as a binomial squared. So the way we can figure out this last number is we take half of the b value, so half of 8 is 4, and then when we square it we would get the correct number for our c value. So we'll just take a look at this first example. We have negative 26. So negative 26 divided by 2 is negative 13. So that's half of the b value, and now I'm just going to square that number to get a positive 169, and that's what would go here. If I wanted to write this in that binomial squared, I would have y. Since we have subtraction here, it would be subtraction also here, and then just half of your b value, so half of 26 is 13 squared. So that would be that binomial squared. So up here at this example, half of 8 is 4. So that's why we have this. So that's just another trick to remember what number goes here. It's always half of your b value, and this number is half of your b value squared. So let's take a look at number 7. Okay, so the steps for solving by completing the square is we're trying to get this r squared and r alone on one side. So we have to add 20 to both sides first. So I have r squared minus 8r equals 20. Okay, so now I have the first two parts of my trinomial. I just need that c value. And to figure that out, I'll take half of my b. So just off to the side, half of 8 is 4. Right here, I'll write it out. So half of 8 is 4, and then 4 squared is 16. So I'm going to add 16 to both sides. So I have r squared minus 8r plus 16, and then this side I have 20 plus 16. Okay, so if I add a number to one side, I have to add that same number to the other side. Now I can rewrite this as a binomial squared. So like I said before, you have subtraction and then half of the b value, and then you have your parentheses squared. On the other side, 20 plus 16 is 36. Okay, all that's left is to solve using square roots. So I'll just take the square root of this side and square root of the other side. The square root cancels out what's being squared, so I'm just left with r minus 4. And the square root of 36 is a perfect square, so it's going to come out as plus or minus 6. Okay, so since this came out as a perfect square, I'm going to rewrite it two different ways. We have r minus 4 equals positive 6, and r minus 4 equals negative 6. And then just finish solving for r. So I add 4 to both sides to get r equals 10, and then add 4 to both sides here to get r equals negative 2. And those would be my two answers. Okay, the next example. So again, we need to get this alone on one side. So I'm going to subtract 33 from both sides first. So this is b squared plus 14b equals negative 33. Half of 14 is 7, and then when I square 7, I have 49. So that's what I'm going to add to both sides. So plus 49 and negative 33 plus 49. Now I have this in a trinomial that I can factor out to be b plus 7, so half of 14 is 7, squared. Okay, you could always factor this off to the side, so 49 and 14, 7 and 7 would give me 49 and add to be 14. But it's best to remember it's half of your b value, especially when we have some fractions. Okay, negative 33 plus 49 would give me 16. and then solve using square roots. So I showed both of these examples just to show you that this minus sign makes it r minus 4 in the parentheses, and now it's a plus sign here, so it's now addition in our parentheses. Using square roots to solve cancels out what's being squared, and then this will be plus or minus 4, and then I'll have b plus 7 can be positive 4, and b plus 7 can be negative 4. So when I subtract 7, I get negative 3 for one answer, and subtracting 7 here, I get negative 11. Okay, one last example for completing the square. We'll look at number 13. So again, we're trying to get these two alone on one side of the equal sign, so I subtract 6 from both sides. Okay, when we're working with completing the square, we cannot have a number with we can't have a number bigger than 1 for our a value. So right now we have 8. So I'm going to divide everything by 8. So when I divide this out, this should always cancel. So I have p squared minus 2p equals, and I can reduce this fraction to be negative 3 over 4. Okay, so what I'm going to add to both sides is half of 2, which is 1, and squared, which is still 1. So I have p squared minus 2p plus 1, and adding 1 to the other side also. Now I can factor this to be p minus just half of that 2, which is 1 squared, and on this side, negative 3/4 plus 1 is positive 1/4. So we use fractions here especially because when I take the square root, we never want a square root of a decimal. We want to rationalize the fraction. Okay, so this cancels, and I'm just going to bring this up over here. So we have p minus 1 equals, and then solving with square roots, it's plus or minus, and it's the square root of the top and square root of the bottom. So when we square root a fraction, don't forget that we would rewrite it like this. Both these are perfect squares, so it's just 1 over 2. So I'll have p minus 1 equals positive 1 over 2, and p minus 1 equals negative 1 over 2. When I add 1 to the other side, I would get 3/2, and adding 1 to this one would be a positive 1/2 for my two answers.